Hello everyone. In this new series of tutorials, I invite you to discover together how to create your own website. We will see this step by step, gradually discovering the basics of programming in the different languages used, and as a basic example, I will recreate this website with you. But, before we start, we need to understand how a website works. The website you are going to create will have to be installed on a server. It is the name given to the computer which will broadcast your site. It will contain all the data, images, and all the elements of your site. This server is connected to the global internet network. The person wanting to see your site is called customer. His computer, laptop, or smartphone is also connected to the global internet network via his access provider. They will therefore communicate with each other so that the server provides the requested page to the client. First, a website is rarely set up on a personal computer. It is almost always set up with a host, on a server which, depending on your budget, is dedicated to several sites or just yours. But, whether it is for one or several sites, it generally does not pose a problem for it, because their performance is sufficient to manage it or them. So your site will be on a server, and a unique address will be dedicated to it. A single address, yes and no, it is the base address which is unique. It is obvious that your site will generally not consist of a single page, and therefore all the other pages will have a subaddress, which will be the combination of your main address, for example, www.mysite.com, followed by the name of the page to be reached, and possibly a page subfolder. The main page, the home of your site, is named by default index. So, and always by default, if you type the address of a site without defining the page you want to reach, you will be automatically redirected to the page named index, which is equivalent to writing as the default address. For our example, www.mysite.com/index.html. Well, here's a first hint for what's next. You will notice the address ending HTML. HTML is actually the name of the coding used to create a site. There are several languages that are used to create a site. The first is the HTML language, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and which was created at the beginning of the Internet, that is, in 1991. Of course, this language has evolved a lot since its creation, and, for at the moment, we are using version 5, created in 2015, which has brought many innovations and new functions to this language. But, what is a language? To be able to display the web page you want to view, your computer will request and receive all the necessary information in order to be able to recreate the requested page and display it on your screen. Indeed, a page is not an image, but a series of elements which, thanks to the coding of the languages used, will be recreated and viewed by your internet browser. And yes, the internet browser is also a powerful program, which will have to reformat and display all the information sent by the server. For example, if we did not have a browser, and we used the Notepad integrated into Windows for example, here is what it would display for the site that we are going to create together. Whoa, that doesn't mean anything at all. For a normal person, no. Because already to be able to understand it, we must know the or all languages used. It's as if you wanted to communicate with a foreign person, but you don't know his language. So, we know that we need to create our site using several languages, including HTML, that it will have to be installed on a server, and that the computer that wants to view your site will do so using its internet browser. And here is the first snag. Indeed, there is not just one internet browser, but quite a large number. Like Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Firefox, Opera, Safari, browsers for iPhone, iPad, Android smartphone, and so on. Each browser has its own functions, and the same site will not necessarily be displayed in the same way depending on the browser used. In addition, a computer, a laptop, or a tablet will generally display your site in landscape mode, while a smartphone or iPhone will generally do it in portrait mode. In addition, not everyone uses the same display resolution on their screen, so if you are creating your site in 4K, someone with a 1600 by 900 resolution display will have to scroll from left to right to be able to view your entire page, and, in this case, he often leaves the site, because the person who wants to view information wants to be able to do so without having to look for where it is on your page. Thus, we have several constraints to take into account when we want to create a site. Moreover, further on, I told you that to display a web page, you had to use several languages. Ouch, why multiple languages? Well, in the early days of the internet, browsers only used HTML language, which only gives the content to be displayed. If I take my example again, and I only use HTML, here is what our browser will display. Obviously, if we create a site as is, it is very unlikely that a single person will stay to view it. So, in 1996, a second language was created, which will enable the layout of your site. This language is CSS, or Cascading Style Sheets. Of course, like HTML, CSS has evolved a lot since its creation, and, at present, we use version 3. These two languages are the necessary basis for the creation of websites. They are complete, so that the HTML will say what to display, and the CSS, how to display it. Good. You are going to say to me, Ola, so we will have to learn at least 2 languages to be able to create a site. Why not create a single language? As I told you, these 2 languages complement each other, and when we create a site, we must first create a model, which represents our site, a model that will allow to, first, see what will have to be displayed, and therefore, that we will create with the HTML language, then, how and where to display it, that we will define with the CSS. You should also know that other languages, such as PHP, MySQL and JavaScript, come to complete these 2 basic languages and that they allow interactivity with your site. Now, what does it take to create a site? Rest assured, everything you need is generally already on your computer, namely, at least an internet browser to be able to test your site. But be careful, do not use the Internet Explorer integrated into Windows. You need the Edge version, because previous versions do not support or will not display your site properly. You will see later that it is possible to define certain functions specifically for the Internet Explorer. I also recommend that you install, if this was not the case, at least 2 other browsers, such as, for example, Chrome, Firefox and Opera, to be able to check the correct display in them. The installation of these browsers is free. To create the HTML and CSS code, the Windows built-in Notepad may be enough. Here is our code in the Notepad. Personally, I installed the Sublime Text. It is free, and it allows you to better visualize your code. Here is the same code in Sublime Text. To create our first site, we won't need anything else. Only time, patience, and a bit of logic. You will see that coding is not difficult if you respect the coding rules of the languages and create a clear and airy code. in which you can find yourself there without having to look for where possible errors can come from. Yes, like everyone else, it is practically impossible to create an error-free web page the first time and in one go. We will therefore see how it is possible to find your way around easily in your code by adding annotations to it. These will be very useful to you, because, in a more or less long time, you may have to modify your site, and these annotations will help you, because, after several months, or even years, you no longer remember exactly how our site was created. In short, after this long preliminary, but which I think it is necessary to know, we will begin step by step, with concrete examples, the creation of our site in the next tutorial. Thank you for your attention. Katerina and Patrick.